Hello there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. I say me, but I really mean us because we have four incredible outliers joining us here today on the Outliers Edge Roundtable, where we're going to discuss about how they continue to show up in the world, level up in the world, and do it in a way that keeps their impact, their income, and their identity all growing with them. Let's get a chance to get to know today's esteemed guests. Mafe, why don't we start off with you? We might let us know more about you and the game that you're playing.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Mafe. As I said, like I'm originally from Venezuela, but living right now in Vancouver, BC, in Canada, and I am a podcast manager, and that has been like the most amazing experience that I've done because I love letting people like take space to really share their thoughts and their stories.
That's awesome to hear. Can you say when you say you're a podcast manager, what does that mean? What do you manage in that?
So I basically help people with editing, uploading their episodes. We also go over a little bit of strategy for their podcast, like what works for them, and yeah, basically how to make their podcast work for them and not like be a hindrance or like another like to do thing, another to do on your endless like task of to do things.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's huge. That's huge. Like I feel like it's a big reason that a lot of people like have something they want to put out into the world, and then they get intimidated by the like all the other stuff
Yeah,
that's revolved around it. And I'm glad to see that you help them out with that.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, Nicole, let's get to know you. Do you mind sharing more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Yeah, so my name is Nicole. I am from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a lot of things. I think that first and foremost, I'm a creative artist. I am a wellness enthusiast, and I'm a lover of nature. I think that right now in my life, I'm currently working a corporate job, which is very drastically different than anything I thought I was going to be doing, and got into kind of the podcast world with my co-host here, Candace. We have a podcast, Conscious for Your Conscious Consideration, and we it's on a pause right now. Actually, to your point, Mafe, we've had some struggles of like how do we keep this with our lives that are keep going on. Candace has a beautiful daughter who came into the picture. Like our lives just kind of tumbled, and we haven't been able to really focus on the like heart of that podcast and being able to create that space. But I know it's actually incredible to meet all of these awesome outliers to see, where that can actually go. But yeah, just finding my way in the world, I think continuously, and trying to find, I think my biggest focus is how can I move through life mindfully in a way that I can like stay grounded even though I'm in like this corporate setting all the time, and I'm a lover of nature. How can I meld those two things? So yeah, really excited to see where today's conversation goes with all of you.
I'm excited to have you here. I love that element of like, how can I move through life like mindfully? Let's bring that in here. And I love, yeah, but I got excited because I got excited for the conversation. Candace, why don't we go to you next, so we can just bring the two of you here and create that bridge. So Candace, tell us more about you and the game you're playing.
Yeah, sure. My name is Candace, originally from Southern California, now residing in Aarhus, Denmark. So the current game I am playing is just being a student of life, it seems. As you heard, had the great honor of hosting our podcast for your conscious consideration, which was just and has been, I will say, continuing on, has been so heart-centered. And life has also come booming in, which has been a lot of expanding and a lot of goodness. So, yes, I have a small family in Denmark. Professionally, I'm working as a content writer for an international company. So, really, above all things, I'm a yapper, I'm a communicator. I love intersectionality, interculturality. I love being challenged by differences of people, of cultures, of places, and I think it's just the most fun and expansive way to grow in this life. So yeah, super excited to dive into this conversation with all you outliers.
This is super fun here, because like I often say, like, let's see how you make a world of difference. How do you leverage what makes you different to make your difference in the world? Because I believe
Mm,
that like being challenged by differences is how we grow as well, right?
absolutely.
And that's the one thing we all have in common. I don't care. Like we can all look out for commonalities. I could come right in and be like, well, you're different than me, and we have that in common. So I'm glad that you're playing that game. I'm excited to see how we choose to leverage it in this conversation. Awesome. All right, Jennifer, bring us home. Like, let us get to know you, share more about you and the game you're currently playing.
Great. Thank you, Niiamah. Well, it's very nice to meet all these wonderful women. My name's Jennifer Roden. I'm a school psychologist, and I have been since 2006. I was born and raised in the city of Erie, Pennsylvania. And yes, we got about 50 inches of snow in the last week or so. It's been interesting. So what brings me to this conversation, and I'm actually really excited to meet these other ladies who are podcasters because not only am I a school psychologist, but I recently, in the last 2 years, developed a podcast that I call Ask Gen Psych. Gen Psych's a little play on general psychology that we all took in undergrad, and I started doing it because some of the younger folks in my department, sometimes when I talk on the phone with parents, they come to me and they say, "Wow, you really are good at talking to parents." And I said, "Well, I don't know. This is just what I do." But then it made me realize, at the regular grind, I just wind up pushing paper a lot. But with the podcast, I'm able to actually consult and share my knowledge and hopefully be a support to parents in the community. So I'm really glad to be part of this conversation, and I'm really glad to meet all of you wonderful people.
Woo, we got ourselves a good old conversation here, right? This is what a round table. I'm going to start off this conversation here. I don't know what questions I'm going to ask, but what I like to do is toss it in for each of you to go and respond to, right? I have an ask here. A lot of times I'll go and I'll ask each person individually a question, and I think it actually slows down the conversation. I like us to start off right off the bat with just a dynamicism that we have, right? So my ask is that in this first question here, just reintroduce yourself with just your first name so that we can start to associate your voice with the responses in your name here. And you don't have to do that after this first one, but let's do that here just so that I'll always get a chance to hear you. All right, cool. So I'm gonna like Jennifer, when you were talking, something sparked up in my mind, a couple different things. But one of them was the opportunity to create yourself or to reinvent yourself, right?
Hmm.
And what I was hearing from you is like on the day to day, you're like, I'm pushing paper, but like I sit behind the mic and I get to create myself and with all the things that I want to be bringing out into the world. So I'd love to just hear from you all about like your processes to like reinventing and recreating yourself out here and just share a bit of that experience for you and how you go about approaching and how you've been able to leverage it to keep like leveling up as opposed to kind of repeating the same things over and over again. Right?
Hmm.
Does anyone feel called to get us started on that? Yeah, I will go with Candace,
Yeah.
go to Jennifer, and then I'm gonna be muted. Y'all just take the comment for a bit.
Well, I'll jump in here because it's just so funny. I feel like the synchronicities with this group is already so amazing. But one of the postcards we made for our listeners for your conscious consideration was it's always a good time to reinvent yourself. And so I really relate to that. And I think I've had it very easy and very privileged to when I've traveled to many different places, I kind of saw it as an opportunity to kind of be Candace in this new country, be Candace in this new city, be Candace in this new space. And so I've found reinvention to come very naturally because when you are confronted with new stimuli, new places, new cultures, you always have the opportunity to act different, right? It's
Hmm.
the easiest way to kind of shake things loose in some ways.
Hmm.
But it can be very terrifying because you want to have that comfort level, right? And that's something I've struggled with. And Jen, I so relate to having the day-to-day work. And I recently just started a newsletter that is not on like the systematic content search engine optimization side, but is really just from my heart, pen to paper, head to heart. And it's been so releasing to kind of be a different person, even in that space, to have a different tone to my voice too, and try that out and to also know that's okay. It's okay to be different on different days in different weeks, right? I
Hmm.
think it's just working with the energies and working with just this what life is all change, right? So it's kind of going with it and going with the flow and finding that space to be new.
I love it,
Um,
Candace. Yes, this is Jen, Jennifer. I agree with all of that. Recreating yourself. Now, I've had a little bit different experience. I was born and raised in this town. I never really left. I love to travel, but just reinvention is really scary because all I've ever known is working in public school. And, I understand that I got to the age where I need to do something different just for my own brain. Then that's where the podcast came in, like I was saying. And it's really scary. Especially, if I don't normally get imposter syndrome, but I got to tell you, just starting the podcast has been, I had episodes that I hung on for 6 months because I was just terrified to release them, afraid people would get mad at me, afraid I'd get in trouble, all those things. And one of my girlfriends, shout out to my friend Courtney, she looked me in the eye and she goes, just push through it. And I was like, oh, yeah. It just took that friend who was like, she's a confident person herself. And she just said, look, you can't just stagnate. You got to push through it. You got this. And I've gotten a lot of really nice encouragement from folks about the podcast. Um, so I'm hoping to keep expanding that. Mafe, I'm really glad to hear your offerings because I might be hitting you up for some help
Oh,
after this
perfect.
because I still am
Yeah.
like, I'm doing all of it myself. And yeah, I have the content down. I can talk to you all day about school psychology and parent support. I mean, till the cows come home. But as far as getting it produced and oh,
It's
it,
hard. It's
it's
it's it's
hard.
it's a lot of work, like honestly. And like, sorry for interrupting, but
Oh no,
this is
you're
Mafe
perfect.
speaking.
Hi, Mafe.
Um, and I think Nicole and Candace were like saying the same thing as get like again, and like I'm on a hiatus right now because like of my podcast from tourist to local, because it's really challenging when you're doing it solo. And when you're like me, like a perfectionist, that you want like everything to sound like perfect all the time. Like for me, like it's way easier to do it for someone else than to do like my
Uh,
own work. And yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
So Nicole,
Yeah.
I
And
see
I don't know
you.
that oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jen. Finish this thought off here. I also saw like Nicole was coming in, so I want to make sure.
Oh, sure. Well, I was going to say I'm not necessarily on hiatus, but I kind of record when I can, and then I get it out
Yeah.
there. I get on a roll, and then I get scared again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
The same thing happens to
Can,
me.
can, can I acknowledge that real quick here? Because as we're listening to this Outliers, like we're having a conversation on your behalf, right? Like you're part of this conversation. So I want to like Jen, I appreciate you because I feel like you came in and you're like, I'm gonna allow like the vulnerability of like my actual experience here. I love to talk about how we're growing, but like the underlying part of this is like I often think that I know myself, I compare how I feel on the inside with how others look on the outside. Right. And like one of my biggest hopes is that we have a conversation where we're like, hey, this is what I'm actually feeling through it. Like you might go on my podcast and be like, and someone might be listening, like, well, I don't have a podcast. Jen has her thing, she's out there doing this. You're like, yeah, every time I hit it, I'm scared. I might sit on it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Eventually it comes out, but that was 6 months there, right? And I,
hmm
I
Well, I'm
I
sitting on
like
an
looking at that.
episode right now that I recorded in probably like October or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna release it. And then like it's edited, it's there, but I'm just like terrified of
Yeah.
releasing it because it's like it's a very vulnerable episode. Just me talking about like my dating experience and like traveling with someone. But yeah, it is really, really scary to like put yourself out there, and because you're always thinking like, oh, what are people gonna think? What if this like gets to the wrong person, and what if
Yeah.
like I don't know, for some reason it goes viral and then like it doesn't go viral the way that I want it to go viral, you
Ooh.
know?
Ooh, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's actually a good. I've
Yes.
I've found that to be similar with the reinvention, right? Is when I'm feeling different and I'm good with this new Candace 2.0, then when I put that out, I'm like, are people going to think I'm phony? Are people expecting me to be
hmm
the same
Yeah.
person I was before? Are people going to think, oh, I'm too much, I'm too crazy because now I'm doing this and I was doing this before. And I think that's something we've probably all kind of danced around is like trying to be understood so bad. I think that was something
Yeah.
that came to
Yeah.
mind was I was like, I'm trying to be understood by people. I don't really need them to understand me, or I don't maybe value their opinion as much, but it is that part of like, will they get it, right? Will they get your podcast episode? Will they understand it? Will they appreciate it? But that's the hard part is like, do I
Yeah.
appreciate it? And is that enough for me? Because
hmm
oh, it's hard. It's hard
Oh, I
Yes,
love
to
that
let
it
that
is.
go.
question. Is that enough for me? Like I love that question.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. And just from the school psychologist, you seem authentic to me.
Oh,
You
well,
don't seem phony, none of you.
oh, thank you. From one psychology major to another. I knew I didn't have the heart. I was like, I started with this, but no, I love diving into that. And it's just, again, this feels so synchronistic of sharing these stories. And I'm sure Nicole has even more. So I'll pass it on to her.
No, yeah, I'm just taking it all in and having Nicole here just to start off with that. But so many things have kind of just like popped up into my head from like the original question of reinventing yourself. I think, I mean, personally going through quite a huge part of my life where I'm reinventing myself, kind of similar to you, Jennifer, where I'm in a town that's it's kind of close to the place I grew up, but it's so new to me. And it's
Mhm.
brought this new realization to myself of like how challenging reinventing myself is in a place that feels familiar but is so different. And I feel like connecting that to like this vulnerability with like putting yourself out there and like yeah, just bringing in even parts of like the podcast, Candace, and for your conscious consideration, I think we have an episode that we never released, like what is it, almost 3 years ago now? Like we've been on a pretty long hiatus, but there's parts of us that I think I'm nervous to get back into it because we've gone through so many evolutions of who we are in these past 3 years. And a part in myself is like, how do I put myself back out there? And how do I like feel good enough with like, I'm no one, I'm not at all like who I used to be, but at the same time, there's like a thread of myself that is still there. And how can I still explore that thread while stepping into like this newness of where I am in life physically, where I am in life like mentally, emotionally, and also where like the rest of the world is now too. Because I think we brought in for your conscious consideration in a time where things were a little different and like the world was going through, you know, a huge pandemic and we were honestly just like sitting in our bedrooms and talking to each other and it felt very like close and safe. And I feel like
Mhm.
now more than ever like the world can use those like heartfelt conversations. And yeah, just sitting here and talking to you guys, I'm like, this is actually so healing because I think it's been a while since I've had a moment to like step into that place of like this is like getting those thoughts out and like connecting with people in this way again. It feels really really good because it feels like a part of that like how can I reinvent myself and not overthink it, because I think that that's a huge part of it. Like that's the practice I'm really trying to focus on right now is being patient with myself and being like okay, that like today we're, you know, a little different than we were yesterday and like just show up where I am and see what happens when I show up that way.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up
Yeah.
something, Nicole. I'm glad I'm glad each of you are here. One of the things I really appreciate is how like different our experiences are, you know, and then how like even the nuances of it make it like really interesting, right? So Jen, you're like, I've been here my entire life. Candace is like, I've like flown like to a totally different country and I'm starting, I have a family out there. Nicole's like, I'm not exactly where I am, but it's like it's close enough that it's like there's a whole challenge in there as well. And I think that like this to me opens up something that I love to like play with here. Um, this component of sometimes it feels, let's say this. I know a lot of outliers who like travel the world, but actually continue repeating the same journey over and over again, right? So they go to a new place and they come in through a job and then like they get to a certain cap, like kind of like a ceiling for them, and then they're like, this isn't it. And then they'll go and they'll start again in some other place there, right? And so I'm curious for you all about how you really find a way to I'll call it like pivot or persevere. And we have our own different ways of doing it. Sometimes it shows up in business, sometimes it shows up in where we travel, sometimes it shows up in relationships, you know. But I'm curious about like how you all look at your choices to continue to it's not even just like stay the course, but like actually up level the course because it feels like the
Mhm.
person you are like can like would need to grow to either to be there or you get a chance to reset. So let me put that question in here because I think there's outliers that are living this in some way, shape, or form, and they find their own kind of Groundhog's Day, thinking that it might be the opportunity, but it's really like it's really with them. So anyone have any
Yeah.
thoughts to put into that?
That honestly reminds me of one of my favorite travel quotes that like had a deeper layer, I think once I turned like 30, but it's, you know, wherever you go, there you are type of
Mm.
thing. But really, when you break it down, it's wherever you go, you are the only thing that is the same there. You only really have yourself, right? So that's
Mhm.
why you can go to a new place but still repeat the same patterns.
Yep.
But with that, it's a huge responsibility. And this has been one of the biggest, I think, lessons of my past year is, again, if I trust myself to make better decisions for myself or to be hopeful or whatever, if I trust myself, that's actually all I can do is to better myself for me, so that
Mhm.
I can train myself to react to the stimuli and the situations in a different way. I can't change the stimuli. I can't change, I could move myself, but I still can't predict what's happening. So I think a lot of steadying the course is really going through of like, what do I want for me? What do I think I deserve? And what am I willing to work for? And sometimes the hard part, that might be less than what other people want or want to work for. Many times it might be more, but being really very, very honest with myself of what do I want to put my energy for or into for what I hope to get back, and being okay with that and not looking, to your point, at what other people are striving for or how they're working or how much or in what way. And that's the really hard part of
Yeah.
kind of being the nexus of yourself, because it can seem lonely, but it's also really empowering when you
Mhm.
have your own back, you know?
Mhm. Those are all good points, Candace. This is Jen. I think I agree with all of that. You're the only person you can count on, and you're the only person who can really be responsible for yourself. But that being said, having a good sounding board and support system is absolutely imperative for you to continue. Nobody can just do everything on their own. Whether it's a spouse, family members, therapist, all of the above. That's really, really important. I mean, I can't suggest therapy to, I think everybody should have a therapist. I really, truly do, because we all have stuff. You know, it doesn't matter who you are or what you do with yourself. It's not your fault. Being able to talk to a neutral person is super, super important. Shout out to Ashley. But yeah, I think that's really important to have that sounding board and have somebody who might call you out too. If they're, in my case, my friend who was just like, just push through it. Yes, it's scary, but you have something valuable to share. Push through and do it. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jennifer, that literally everyone needs a therapist in their life. I will go blue in the face and like telling this to everyone. I'm like, you need therapy, even
Everybody
when you
does.
think, yeah, even when you think you don't need it, because you always have like stuff. And especially, and then going back to what Candace said, that like, yes, you're the only person that you can count on, but you are the only person that you can count on to like ask for help or like have like that sounding board as well. So I think it's yeah, like totally agree with like what Jennifer and Candace said regarding that.
Yeah, that brings up like, so I'm in a place right now in my life where I am almost in a challenge with my past self, where I am struggling with like who I used to be when I was that person maybe 5 years ago. At that time, I was like, this is who I want to be forever. I want to be super well aware and grounded and like doing all of these really like great things for myself. And I was doing it in a way that was not sustainable at that time, and I didn't realize that. And now 5 years later, have gone through so much in my life and in a place now where I'm like battling that old self that's telling me like you should be doing this, you should be like meditating, you should be really holding space for yourself every day, like you should be doing the things that help you ground you. But I've now grown up and come to the realization that like that's not realistic every like 24/7 every single day. There has to be some balance in life. And I think also, like I mentioned, I'm in a corporate setting which challenges that like no other place I've ever been to. Um, so it's really interesting to just like hear all of your perspectives on this and be in this place in my life where I'm like, I'm actually in a place where I'm struggling with the fact that like I am that person who needs to rely on herself when like the mindset that's so well structured within me is to like do it in an unsustainable way. So I'm in that place now of how can I invite that in a way that is sustainable for me every single day and in a way that's like realistic, and knowing that like I am I keep coming back to patience, because like every single day, if I like beat myself up for not doing what I want to be doing, then like that's not sustainable either. So I think that like, yeah, really trying to build that trust with my past self that like I am going to do what's right for me, but it might look a little different, it might feel a little different, and like finding that trust in like, okay, it's going to be a little different, and that you're not doing anything wrong because it doesn't look like that like perfect vision you had 5 years ago, and it's, yeah, it's like a little bit different. And how can we keep building, I feel like keep building that trust. That's what I've been trying to do with myself like lately, and really I feel like that's me reinventing myself now, is like how can we do that in a way that, yeah, is sustainable to today's Nicole and not 5 years ago, who, I don't know, had this idea that wasn't as obtainable as I had hoped.
It's almost
I
like you
love
have to
hearing.
kill. Oh, sorry. It's almost like you have to kill like the older version of yourself and then just like
Yes, totally.
become a new one. Because like when I moved to Canada from Venezuela, like I was a completely different person. And then when I got here, one of the reasons that I moved was because I just wasn't like feeling that I fit in like in the like in the community anymore. So I was like, I just need like someplace else. Like I just need to go somewhere else where I can actually be like 100% myself. So I just moved far away from home to a place where like no one knew me, like no family, just me, myself, and I. And yeah. So it's really crazy. Sorry, Jennifer, you were gonna say something.
Oh, that's okay, no problem. I just love hearing this self-reflection because it's really powerful to just be able to forgive yourself for things that you might have made mistakes doing, and also just to reflect and be proud of yourself for the good things that you have done. That's really important, and I love to hear it. One of the principals I worked with a while ago, she told me when I turned 40, you're just gonna something a switch is gonna flip, and you're just gonna not care what people think. And she was right. My
Yes.
near vision also went. So you
Oh
also have
no.
that to look forward to. And there's other women symptoms, that aren't so fun. But I'll tell you what, the self-confidence, I don't know what it
Mhm.
is, but like once I turn 40, and I like by the time I'm 80, I'm gonna be like a phoenix, I think. But it's really
Uh,
cool just hearing you ladies reflect and really, respect yourselves. So
yeah.
nice work.
I love that, Jen. Thank you for the perspective. Because also, it's fun that you and Mafe kind of called out that community is important too, and knowing and trusting yourself to know when you do need to bring in that community is something that has been my challenge, because I have been the independent person. I have been like, oh, I'm going to move and do, I'm not going to wait for other people to do the things that I want, was like kind of a lesson that got ingrained in me early on. And so I go, I do it. And now also having a family, I have to slow down and consider how this is going to affect more people. And I also have to slow down for myself again to say, I can do all of this. Like Nicole and I could do all of the podcasts, but we're like, when we kind of come up from this hiatus, we do not want to, because we want to do other things. And also we want to build the community and trust people to help us build, this incredible project that we're doing. So I just really love that reminder. And I'm like taking my notes, because it is hard to kind of switch back from that like hyper independent, be like, yeah, I've done it in the past, especially. Oh, I've done it in the past. It worked fine. But now it's a whole different ballgame. And so now what tools, what community, what do I need in this body, in this presence, to be able to grow and expand?
I'm grateful y'all bringing this in, because as I'm listening, it's almost as if you're in my own head, Nicole, especially when you're talking about battling your old self here. I've been doing this game for about the last 10 years with on and off with podcasting, coaching in a similar way. Well, I've been on for that, but I remember who I was at like 2019, 2018, 2019, 2020, and I felt like I was like this huge champion for uplifting the world. And I sit here at the time of this recording, we're in 2024. Um, I sit here and I'm like, I remember being guided by something much larger than myself. And now, like, I'm like, I have the energy for this. I could like who, like, how do I get back to that? And as you're talking, it just reminds me, like, maybe there is no back to get to. And Candace, I'm hearing you like for the person that is here right now, what would fuel them? What is it that they need? Who is this person now? Because we aren't the people that we used to be. And Outliers, I want to make sure we give space to that. Mainly because I know like the self-flagellation, I used to really like be hard on myself around this. And as I hear you talk, I'm grateful that you bring this in. So let's talk now a bit around where things are going for you all. I want to look into some places where you feel that you are taking on a project that like really excites you, but at the same time scares you. And it's calling like the thing that I'm looking for with it is that it calls you to become something. The way I look at it is almost like we're leveling up our skills. Like I've been a talker my entire life. And I kept leveling that up to be at the level that I play at right now. So I'm curious what you all are doing right now that is causing you to have to grow as a result. Any takers on
Hi again, this is Jen. So I've talked a little bit about my imposter syndrome. I've talked a little bit about, just being nervous about putting out new content. But this year, now that I have over 20 episodes recorded, my goal is to really get marketing, because I haven't even hit up my own parent-teacher association at my school. That was another thing that I was really afraid of. Like, am I allowed to do that? And I am. I am. And there's a group in Erie of about 4,000 people called Erie City Moms. And it's a support group for moms, in any, moms who have neurotypical kids, moms who have kids with disabilities, just a forum for these ladies to get together. And there's childcare. It's like a mom's night out. So there's childcare, and then the women can commiserate and just kind of connect. So I'm going to be talking to them. That's going to be my first big, really like exciting marketing step, is getting involved, like being a guest speaker for the moms. And I'm not a mom myself, which might make it seem strange for me to go this path, but I've talked to literally thousands. Over the last 25 years of working in public schools, I've talked to thousands of moms. I'm a mom enthusiast. I think it's the hardest job you could ever possibly have, and I know that. So I'm excited to support these women. I'm also excited to use that as like a stepping stone to get my podcast going, because really, once I have enough years in the retirement system, that's kind of my exit gig. There's some things I can do with school psychology independently, and that's cool because I do like the job. But I'm excited to kind of expand the podcast and really get more listeners and actually monetize it and get it so that can be my next big step.
That is super exciting. Congrats, Jen. Candace here, and I'm like I'm making these plans on the call, so hope I'm not stomping on anything or shaking things up, Nicole. But honestly, I feel like, again, the synchronicities of this conversation, I would love to put more time and energy into our podcast. And the recent project that I've expanded, I mentioned I started a Substack, which has been so healing and so challenging to like enter a new social media space, which I've kind of retracted from recently, and to again be, I think, my most authentic self in that space, which is writing the way I want, which is doing the references that I know not everybody might get, but they make me laugh. And being completely honest. And there's been a part of me that, because of that vulnerability, has not wanted to mix my audiences or my community in certain ways of like, okay, I have my LinkedIn personality, I have my Instagram or whatever that is, I have my in person, and then I have this writing voice. But the more I pour into that, the more I'm like, this feels too good to kind of hide. And that's been another challenge I didn't realize I was going through, was like the fear of being seen. And I think anybody who knows me in real life is like, no, that's a lie. Like you're very gregarious, you're very outgoing, you're a yapper. But again, it's when you reinvent yourself and you're finding out who you are and you're kind of making up yourself as you go, it still feels really vulnerable. Like, again, what if I go viral for the wrong reasons? Or what if I regret this in a week? What if I regret it in 4 years? What happens, and nothing that we can control. But I really am excited to continue leaning into that writing space. And a big step I took to make more room for that was actually kind of slowing down in my corporate job. And for the first time in my 34 years, being like, I don't need to be at the top of this ladder. I don't need to keep climbing in that way. I'm actually fine being fine here. So I can pour more energy into these types of projects, into my child, into, traveling, into other, just being open to other experiences and helping, vulnerable groups that I'm really passionate about, especially in this time. And so it feels so new because I'm making decisions, like we said, from this Candace's perspective, but like 5 years ago, Candace is like, what are you doing? I guess I trust you, but this is different. But yeah, I just again super, super excited to kind of get this jolt of energy and yeah, you down for the podcast, Nicole? Because it's recorded now, so we have to we have to do something with it.
Yes, it's on the books. No, and I
So,
think that that is absolutely, I mean, I had a feeling that this was kind of going to be the rocket towards that. And Mafe, I truly think that you might be someone that is going to help us get us off the ground with that. So looking forward to connecting further if you're open to that. Um, no, but I think, yeah, that, so I'm actually, what came to mind when you're asking that question, Niiamah, like was, so I'm a Reiki master and I am like trained in energy healing and it's something that has always kind of been like a background passion of mine, but I've fallen out of a relationship with it for like a few different reasons. I think that, energy healing kind of has like a very distinctive representation, especially in the US. And Reiki being a Japanese like practice is, there's like acts of appropriation with that. And there's like a lot of things that I've kind of like been very hesitant to how am I representing this in the world and how am I going about like offering that. And so I actually have an opportunity of doing a Reiki certification, like level 1 in January. And I'm really excited for it, but there is like, because of all those reasons of like, am I doing this correctly? Am I going to like really honor this practice? And is it something that I should be doing? I've been very hesitant about it, but I think something keeps like kind of whispering in my ear of like, it needs you, it needs someone who honors those things and has that like understanding behind it. And so there's still, even though I'm like pushing back, I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I really don't know if this is right. There's something that continuously pushes me towards that. And I think that it really is this opportunity for me to be a voice in that community and like without this like egotistical, like you're the one who's going to do it right, more so like this voice of offer it in a little bit different way, in a way that is like maybe more grounded, more practical, in a way that is more approachable rather than, the way that everyone else kind of talks about it just because it's the way it's always been talked about. And that's to me is a huge challenge for myself because I'm like, how do I hold the reverence of such a like deeply rooted practice that has been, brought to the US and has been mishandled in so many ways? And like, is this something that you can do? And yeah, like it's an opportunity for me to like see how I can show up and how I can share something that has really changed my life and has offered a practice to myself to like really become grounded in myself and like what there can I do to like help myself be more truthful to myself and like what it is I'm bringing to this world. And I think that it's one of those places because like the podcast where Candace and I go, it's like it's just her and I recording and we can talk about whatever we want and it's our safe space and people can have their opinions about it, but at the end of the day like it's just her and I and like it's kind of like a sounding board. But to bring something that is like so deeply ingrained in me with like this huge, there could be so many opinions, so many like ideas and concepts behind like sharing a practice that is not of my culture. Um, and I think that I'm putting myself out there in a way that scares the absolute crap out of me. And there is like, for some reason, there's still just this voice that is like, you've got to do it though, whether it's for you, whether it's for like the Reiki master who's trained me, like there's just so many things that are like, just do it and see what comes of it. And if nothing else, like who knows, like there, who knows who's going to sign up for it and see what comes of it and see like what, yeah, where I can go to grow myself. And I think coming back to like, can I trust in myself, like to do what I know is right by me and by this practice? So
Mm.
yeah.
Nicole, when you bring this in here, like I'm really grateful. Like if you're watching the video of this, you're gonna see that like a smile just like came out for me, and I just like couldn't stop the smile from continuing to flow out. Um, what I get about you, Nicole, is that like you do things mindfully. You brought it up earlier around like you brought up earlier, and I got a chance to experience it here, and I really got to say like there's like I feel that, and now I'm going to talk to both you, Nicole, but also the outliers out here because like I get like I've had a lot of conversations. I ask myself here, I'm like, not only who am I, but like how do I do this in a way that is in integrity, you know? And I feel that level of like walking the line of saying I'm like I am doing this. This is going to happen. I feel your call, like you're being called to do it. Like I hear you in that. Um, but then choosing to do it in a mindful way versus in an entitled way versus in a place where you're not thinking about all like I can hear that because you are choosing to do it this way, you will find a way to honor it. Like it is in and of itself honoring it. Now I know you may have different levels that you want to hit on that, but I just really I feel very refreshed hearing you be honest about how you're choosing to hold it. Because I think there's been a lot of times where I've wanted to go out and do things bring new ideas out to life, even established in my own world. Even when I could bring people into my own space, and I'm like, I like my castle, my rules, and I'm still like, how do I walk this? And so it's been a really great reminder of like, at least to me, when you were talking, the thing that kept coming in my head was, well, as long as you're being mindful, and you're doing it with intention, you'll navigate the way. That's something that I'm taking away from this conversation. So I appreciate it. You know, y'all, this conversation has been awesome, and somehow like time has flown on by. And so what I want to do is give us a chance to make sure that outliers know how they can continue down the path with us. Before I do that, I'm going to talk to outliers once again. Y'all, we've had the great pleasure of enjoying a conversation that has actually invited us to be a part of it. And my thing here is that I'm going to ask you to share this conversation with one person in your life who you feel would really benefit from getting this. This is part of our one person, one conversation at a time initiative, which is like the way that I look at I don't know, the real work being done here. Please go ahead and share it out on your platforms. You can put it on Instagram. You can share it out like to everyone that wants to listen. That's great. But in addition to that, if you can find one person in your life who's struggling or is thinking about or is thinking that they're the only one thinking about any of the things that we talked about here today, and just let them know, like, hey, I as in you are thinking of them and give them the gift of this conversation so they can be a part of it too. That would mean the world to me. All right. So if you can go ahead and share that with one person, that'd be awesome. What we're going to do now is that we are going to wrap up our conversation. The way that I like to do that is like outliers are taken care of, right? They're good. So now I'm going to come to you for, and we're going to wrap up in this way. One, I'd love for you to share your contact information. How can outliers go deeper down the journey with you? Right. That's one. And then two, I'd love for you to share an insight or a takeaway that you're going to leave this conversation with. And if you didn't get an insight from this conversation, that's fine too. You just let us know. But that's how I love to wrap things up. So we're going to share how outliers can go deeper down the journey with you. And then we're also going to share an insight that you got from it. And then we'll wrap up here with each other. All right. So we're going to go to Jen and then Candace for this year. Jen, do you mind letting us know?
Not at all. Thank you so much, Niiamah, for having me on. I'm absolutely thrilled to have met you and these three wonderful women. I hope to communicate with them more after this because I think we have a lot in common. I think the best way to find me is at askjenpsych_pod at Instagram, and that has my link tree with my email and all. Has all the how to listen to my podcast, how to get in touch with me, and all that stuff. So I think that's the best way to get in touch with me. And also, as far as takeaways, I just love hearing that I'm not the only one who gets a little nervous about putting myself out there. I'm really validated by hearing, that other women are needing to reflect, and I really like hearing all these positive affirmations that you're all sharing with yourself and kind of pushing forward, even though it's scary. And I think a lot of people just get complacent and are afraid to put themselves out there. But, those of us, I think what makes us outliers is the fact that we just got the courage and we did it. So thank you. It's so nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Jen. Candace, let's hear from you, and then we'll go to Nicole.
Yeah, well said. Again, I think the best way, as I've mentioned, especially if you really want to dive deeper into my journey, is to follow along on my Substack. So you can search Muse It or Lose It on Substack, and you'll find me, Candace. There, I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus, doing my own bit of December, and really taking the hibernation seriously. But super excited to have this conversation. And really, I think because of this conversation, one of my key takeaways and reminders is that when you prepare yourself and when you get yourself ready and at least just get to that point of hope and possibility, things will come. Like the people will come, it will come, because again, we've been tinkering about this idea and like, what would this mean? And could we do the podcast again? And how would we go about this? And are we the only ones struggling? And really, through this conversation, like 8 of the 10 of my worries or questions kind of got canceled by bringing this beautiful group together. So I just love jumping on this call, having no idea what it was going to be about, and really just feeling so healed in so many ways. So yeah, the takeaway is just get yourself prepared for the universe, for God, for the world, for anybody to help you out and to find that support, because you're worth it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you very much. Nicole and then
Amazing.
Mafe.
Yes, yeah. So I think probably best way to find me is on Instagram. My name is Nicole with an H, so it's Nichole M Logan. And my God, I think there's been so many takeaways from this conversation. But the one that's coming to mind is like, I feel like we don't choose to be outliers. Outliers kind of like choose us, and then we just, continuously go forward with that mentality. And I think my biggest takeaway is truly like just trusting in that and like not trying to rush it, not trying to control it, and knowing that it is going to lead us to beautiful connections and heartfelt conversations with each other and with the world. And knowing that, yeah, it's just like the more you do it, the more people you're going to find that have those same insights and same connections in this world. So it truly has been such a pleasure to be on this conversation with you all.
Thank you for being here, Nicole. And then Mafe, go there.
Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest takeaways that I take from this conversation is that one is don't be afraid to reinvent yourself just because of what people might think. And then two is that the world really needs you to be like speaking and like saying and just like taking space in the world for other like or to be an example for other people. So I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much, Niiamah, for providing this space. And you can find me on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. So at Mafe Salazar. And then you can listen to my podcast as well, From Tourist to Local. And I have a little project in the parking lot. It's a Substack, and it's called a Millennials Pensive. So that's going to be a little bit, I want to bring it with the podcast. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I love that we're consistently creative and we're allowing ourselves to keep growing here. And I thank you for going out, doing the work, and then being here and sharing it with us. This is a cool snapshot of being a part of your world right here. My gratitude to you all and my message to you outliers as we leave this conversation is just to remember one simple thing. Go out into the world and be you on purpose. Journey out.